Mac, do you hear me?
Yes.
So you have headphones, Angelica? You have an input and output audio times 2, so headphones will help. Or use your phone for Teams.
Hello?
Good job, Baba. You sound so pretty. Oh, you want to do it again? You're like mommy, huh?
I want to do that again.
Oh, okay.
It feels good.
It feels good? Okay, you want to go? Lift every voice and sing.
I am not a stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say, 'cause we don't want your broken parts.
Hi,
To be
can you see
ashamed
me or
of
hear me?
the
Okay.
scars.
The
Run away,
background is
they
coming.
say, no one
It's
will love
changed to
you
blue.
as you are.
She's
I won't
reorganizing it a
let
little
them
bit so
break
that there's a
down
Y
the
one
dust.
at the
I
top,
know
and then
that
the logos
there's
will
a
be on the
place
side
for
like this.
us, for we are
Okay. Does
glorious. When the sharpest words wanna cut me down, when the scent of blood wanna
how
tear
is
me
it not muted?
down, I am brave, I am bruised, I
Can you
am
hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Look out, 'cause here I
You want me to mute?
come.
Should I go on mute?
To the beat I drum. I'm not scared to be
Hi,
seen. I
Cecile.
make no
We'll start in a moment.
apologies.
If you could
This is
close
me.
your camera and go on mute, that'd be great.
Do you want me to be on mute now?
Yes.
Another round of bullets hits my skin. Well, fire away, 'cause today I won't let the shame sink in. We are bursting through the barricades and reaching for the sun. That's what we belong. I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us. Oh, we are glorious.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Oh, good. Okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't hearing anything.
Yeah, I couldn't hear anything either, but I'm gonna mute myself first.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna hop off. I'll see you later.
I saw a demon on my shoulder, it's looking like patriarchy, like scrubbing blood off the ceiling and bleaching another carpet. How my house get haunted, while Toyin body don't embody all the life she wanted. The baby just 19, I know I dream all black. I seen her everything, immortalizing tweets all caps. They say they found her dead. One girl missing, another one go missing. One girl missing another, but niggas in the back quiet as a church mouse. Basement studio when duty calls to get the verse out. I guess the ego hurt now. It's time to go to work. Wow, look at him go. He really doubts to write about me when the world is in smokes. When it's people in trees. When George was begging for his mother saying he couldn't breathe. You thought to write about me? One girl missing. missing, another one go missing. One girl missing, another one. Yo, but little did I know all my reading would be about there is trans women being murdered, and this is all he can offer, and this is all y'all receive. Distract you from the convo with organizers. They talking abolishing the police, and it's a new world order. We democratizing Amazon, we burn down borders. This is a new vanguard, this is a new vanguard. I'm the new vanguard.
Good evening, and welcome to YWCA's Why Women Vote virtual conversation on the impact of women's votes in Florida. Please be aware that your lines are muted and that we are recording today's event. Members of the press are welcome to participate in today's town hall, and all statements are on the record. Today's virtual town hall is divided into two distinct segments. The first hour will be a panel discussion and audience question and answer session with leading Florida state, national experts in voting rights, gender equity, and racial justice. After the panel discussion concludes, we will hear remarks from representatives of the Republican and Democratic presidential campaigns. Each campaign is being provided equal time to address the issues discussed during the panel. Please note that YWCA is a nonpartisan 501c3 organization and does not support nor does it endorse any candidates for public office. All partner organizations are participating in today's event in strict accordance with these 501c3 rules and restrictions. Accordingly, there will be no discussion of candidates or political parties by town hall speakers. During today's event, there will be several ways for participants to interact with each other and with the panel. Please use the chat pod with each other to share thoughts and respond to the conversation in real time. Please also use the Q&A pod to pose questions for the panel. There will be a time after the panel ends its formal discussion for Q&A, but please feel free to submit questions during the conversation as well. And with that, we will begin our town hall with the playing of an important video recognizing the voices of Florida's women.
Do you want to go first?
Who starts?
Why do you vote, Mama?
I vote because it's really important that my voice is heard.
It is a privilege that my great-grandmother and her mother did not have.
If I'm not voting, then no one's thinking about my issues.
Access to health care, police violence, immigration reform,
environmental issues,
access to affordable housing, gendered violence against women, queer, trans, and non-binary people of color.
All these policies personally affect me.
I am so inspired by this young, beautiful lady sitting next to me because she is informed.
I look at women like her, and they were the ones who taught me to speak up for myself.
We're beginning to see that we do make a difference. Voting is the way to do it.
Every woman, please vote for yourself and for your sisters.
YWCA is on a mission to eliminate racism and empower women.
Tu voz, tu voto, tu futuro.
Your voice,
your vote, your future.
Thanks. And now I'd like to turn things over to Carrie Ann Royce, and then we'll queue up another video shortly. Carrie Ann?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Carrie Ann Royce. I'm President CEO of YWCA South Florida. On behalf of our YWCA, we thank you for tuning in to this important conversation with America's women. Florida voters decided the 2000 election, and with 29 electoral votes, we have the capacity to once again change the outcome of the 2020 election. Women have outnumbered men in the voting booths in every presidential election since 1984. In the United States, we make up a majority of the registered voters and vote in higher rates than men. It holds true in Florida. In 2018's election, 69% of Florida's women were registered to vote and 55% voted, compared to 65% of men and 52% that voted. There is much at stake for women in Florida in the upcoming election. The outcome will decide whether policies are enacted that support women, their families, and their community. Among Floridians, women will be the most important demographic. Your vote impacts economic justice. Who you put in office will decide policies that affect affordable childcare, healthcare, housing costs, the safety of reopening schools, or the successful rollout of online education and local and state laws. We are excited to be focusing on South Florida tonight with a close look at the issues that are taking place in our backyard and will be driving women to the polls this year. As YWCA South Florida turns 100 this year, our century-long mission has shown us that equal access to the ballot box, in addition to housing, food access, education access, medical care, are all critical to the fight for racial justice. And with just 21 days left until Election Day, it is important that we recognize the barriers to voting, that many of us still face, and that we continue to work to eliminate them. So hosting discussions like tonight are essential in the journey of social justice and our social justice organization. I would like to recognize our sponsors for making tonight's event virtual conversation possible. Thank you to our leader sponsors, Uber, Apollo Bank, and AARP. Thank you to our supporter sponsors, RBB Communications and League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade. We also have great appreciation for our justice partners who support our work, Miami Dolphins Football Unites, and to Kaufman Rawson, who recently made a multi-year commitment to YWCA's economic justice work. I also want to give an extra special recognition to our host committee and previous YWCA board members, Karen Gilmore, Sarah Harold, and Ann Machado, who have given back years, many, many years, and their passion for women issues to YWCA. Please give them a virtual round of applause. We appreciate you joining us this evening and encourage you to continue this journey with us to eliminate racism, empower women, and promote peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. As we dive into this evening's discussion, we hope to inspire all women to raise their voices and shed light on the policies and actions that should be paramount as our nation grapples with healing the wounds of racial injustice and the COVID-19 impacts. Thank you again for being here. And now it is my distinct pleasure to turn things over to our YWCA USA President CEO, Alejandra Castillo, who will introduce tonight's panel.
Thank you, Carrie Ann. And I think we are actually teeing this up for another video, just to set the tone as we begin this very important panel discussion.
Alejandra, I think we are introducing panelists first and the video comes just a short while later. Thank you.
The beauty of virtual town halls. I am so excited. Carrie Ann, you said so many important things that we're going to carry through this evening's conversation. First of all, leadership at the YWCA of South Florida. Not only are you energetic, innovative, but you have the passion and commitment to carry forth the mission of YWCA, which is eliminating racism and empowering women. And I see so many of our YWCA leaders who have also joined us from across the country. I know there's folks from Washington State and individuals from Ohio. And that is the beauty of YWCA. We represent 2.3 million, we serve 2.3 million women through our 204 associations, and they're all incredibly important in the communities that they serve. And South Florida is no example. We know that, as you mentioned, with only 21 days before the election, our voices must be raised. So I want to make sure that we elevate the fact that Florida's women always play an important role in election. Critical voting blocks like Latinx, African American women, and young voters. And this year is no exception. We're exactly 3 weeks out from the election, and YWCA's new poll tells us that as our nation heads to the poll, Florida women are intensely concerned about access to affordable and secure health insurance for them and their families. African-American Florida women are concerned about family safety from police violence. And Latinas are worried that their total family income will not be enough. These are just examples of what our Florida poll has revealed. And there's more information to that, so we will make it available to the audience. This is really no surprise. Our nation is grappling with the COVID-19 pandemic. Women are bearing the brunt of a she-cession. This isn't your typical male-dominated economic recession. There's a contentious Supreme Court vacancy going on as well, and our nation is reeling from a long overdue reckoning around racial justice. Women here in Florida and around the nation have significant concerns for our families, our communities, and our lives. Raising our voices to inform policymakers and others in our community about these issues is more important than ever. During our discussion today, we have an amazing expert panel of leading women voices who will share their insight about these issues. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Fatima Goss, President and CEO of the National Women's Law Center, who will be a panelist. Cecile Scoon, First Vice President, League of Women Voters of Florida, the panel, and Tchen, President and CEO of Time's Up Now. To get us started, I want to make sure that we set the tone. So, Cecile, in the next 3 to 5 minutes, can you share with us the state of play here in Florida around voting? What do the women of Florida need to know about when, where, and how they can vote this year?
Hi, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to speak with you and so many of your supporters and members. There are so much to be excited about this opportunity to vote. It's something that we have fought for and have had the right for. It's been 100 years since we got the right. There are several ways that I want people to think about voting, and we have several options in Florida. We can vote by mail, which requires you to request your vote by mail ballot. We have early voting, which starts either October 19th or 24th. You need to check with your supervisor of election. And of course, we can do voting on election day. So we have 3 different ways of voting, and we should plan on it depending on our family responsibilities, our health, our age, our accessibility, and of course, keeping in mind that the present COVID situation. So when you decide if you want to vote by mail, I would like to share a couple of tips with you about voting by mail. That's really, really important to think about. And that is something that you need to request your vote by mail ballot by contacting your supervisor of election. And you can do that by calling them, by emailing them, or walking into the office. And you need to request your vote by mail ballot. It is not sent to you automatically in Florida. Once you get it, you want to look at it carefully and do your research. And you can research, there's voters guides. The League of Women Voters has a nonpartisan voters guide that you can look at, and many others that you can consult. When you decide what you want to do with your vote by mail, you want to fill it out carefully And on the back of the envelope, there's a place that you have, when you close it, you sign on the outside of the envelope. And that's not very common practice. Please remember that. And then you close it up and you make sure that it must be into the supervisor's office no later than 7 p.m. on election day, which is November the 3rd. If you choose to mail it, we ask you to mail it early because of concerns about postage, and to make sure that when you sign it, that your signature looks like the signature you turned in when you register to vote. Early voting allows you to go in early when hopefully there's less crowds, and you don't have to depend on the weather. If the weather is not good a certain day, you don't have to wait till the last day. So those are the things that we would ask you to consider. Again, if you want to do your vote by mail, you want to request that early. The deadline to request it, if you want it to be mailed to you, is October the 24th, but we urge you to request it much earlier. Just get on the phone, look up your supervisor of elections office, and you can ask them on the phone. And if you have internet access, you can also just type in and select and send an email to request your vote by mail ballot. You want to return it? You want to return it early. You can actually also return it to different early voting sites on the days that early voting is available. So if an early voting site is near you, you don't have to take it all the way to the supervisor of elections office, except the very last day of voting. On voting day, if you still have your vote by mail ballot in your hand, you must turn it in directly to the supervisor of elections office. So the whole concept of vote by mail is something to be done early. And here's another tip that I want you to remember. You can actually check the status of your vote by mail ballot. Once you turn it in, give a few days, and then you can go online, or you can call and you can ask them, did you get my vote by mail ballot? And has it been properly loaded? So that's like a double way for you to make sure you've turned it in early and there's no issues with your signature and no issues with anything else with the ballot. So that's it. Those are the different tools that you can use to make yourself feel comfortable trying the early vote by mail process. Of course, you have early voting, which gives you an opportunity to go to early voting sites, and you need to look those up on your supervisor of elections webpage. They'll list all the early voting sites, and many of our supervisors of elections try to spread them out into different communities. Hopefully you wouldn't have to go too far. But the idea is to avoid crowds, to avoid delays, and to give space. Again, concerns of being social distancing concerns because of the pandemic we're experiencing. The third way is election day voting, which for many traditionalists, that's just what they feel good about. That's what they were raised to do, and they're very accustomed to doing it. And you certainly are welcome to do that. Make sure that you know where the early voting sites are, if they're open on election day, or if there are limited places that you need to go for election day voting. What you need to do is plan, do your research, and take your children with you. Have some fun. Let them see how important voting is to all of us. If you have any questions, we recommend that you go to vote411.org. It is nonpartisan and can help you look at the status of your voter registration. It can help you check your vote by mail ballot, and other information is available for you there. So happy voting.
Cecile, thank you so much. We will make these slides available because you've given us the roadmap. There is no reason for anybody to not vote or to find themselves not prepared for this important election. So I want to make sure that as we, to help ground the next part of our conversation, and as you join us back in, Cecile, we've got a video of young women of color from YWCA sharing their thoughts about economic concerns in their lives.
I will say that amongst my peers who have graduated from college within the last 1 to 2 years, a huge thing is student loans. A lot of people who had to take out tens of thousands of dollars in debt are now, you know, facing unemployment due to COVID and are having to pay back these private lenders, and the interest rates are really high. So it feels like you're just getting stuck behind, even if you have the degree which you work so hard to attain.
If I hadn't gotten the scholarship, it would have been a struggle for me to pay for college. College is expensive.
There were a lot of people at my high school that didn't have access to Wi-Fi or didn't have a computer, and I'm sure that applies to people in college too. For people that don't necessarily have the funds to get the resources that they need, I think COVID really put a spotlight on the disparities between economic groups.
So a lot of students do not have education around finances. And also just in my family, we never talked about finances. That was just something you did not do in our Black community. And so I feel like having the lack of education about financial well-being and financial freedom is really holding a lot of people back. But if you mismanage your money, you will perpetually always be poor. But our university actually just opened up a food pantry on campus, which has been really helpful for students in that situation. But even outside of our community, we have it's a small city. We have a well-to-do area and a very poor area. There is a food desert on one side of the city, but the other side has other grocery stores. There's only gas stations on one side of the city. The bus only goes so far downtown. Like there are so many systems in place here that just does not help the poor people in the city, and it just doesn't make any sense.
And they told me they're going to cut my food stamps because of unemployment. I don't get that much from unemployment, so why are you cutting my food stamps? And I was back and forth with the lady, even though I know it's like not her fault. I'm frustrated. I can't make it without food. We're just getting hard, and it's kind of upsetting that I'm only going to get $16 in food stamps, and I still have to pay rent. So what am I supposed to do then? All these struggles on top of struggles on top of struggles, and I don't know like how to catch a break.
Alejandra, we can hear you.
Thank you for that. I was caught by that last piece, struggle on top of struggle on top of struggle, not able to get a break. And I think that that's really the core of what's at stake here. As we bring in our incredible panelists, Fatima, Tina, Cecile, I just want to make sure that we center ourselves. These aren't ordinary times, and there's so much at stake for women, communities of color. I know you have done these panels gazillion times, but the conversation never tires, because we know, not only with the pandemic, the economic crises, and the national call for racial justice. I want to bring us back in, because we have some time tonight to really sit in community with over almost 100 participants tonight, but also to be able to tap into what you're seeing, where you sit, what are you seeing, what are you observing, what gets you up every single day to keep this fight going, because you know that the future of our country depends on it. So I want to put that question out to. I'll start with you, Fatima, since I see you in the square here. Tell us what you're seeing as you go through these virtual conversations across the country, and you're motivating. What's the top agenda items that are of concern to you?
Well, I'm so glad to be here with the YW, and thank you for those videos. I found them to be so powerful, and it sort of tracks what we are hearing from women around the country. We know that women have disproportionately borne the brunt of this pandemic, in part because they're the majority of essential workers, they're the healthcare providers, they're the grocery workers, they're childcare providers, home health aides. And for us, we have always known that this work was essential, but it hasn't been paid essentially. It hasn't had conditions that demonstrate that they're essential. And we also are facing a dramatic unemployment for facing women, especially Black and brown women. And in September, I was just really struck by these numbers that over 1.1 million people left the workforce and 865,000 of them were women. More Latinas left the workforce just in the month of September than all men together. And so how we understand the recession that we are facing and the pain that people are feeling right now, it is not like other recessions. And I just want to make one more point is that this is happening amidst a remarkable care crisis in this country, which is felt more and more urgently every single day and borne mostly by women who are both the vast majority of the childcare workers, but are also the people who are working and caregiving and parenting all at once, and it is driving them out of the workforce.
So Tina, if I can bring you in, playing off of Fatima's remarks, can you highlight the issues that have, the issues that have disparate impact on women in particular, whether it's healthcare and pre-existing condition, particularly during COVID?
Oh,
You've had such a stellar career, and you've seen government up close and what government can do. But what are you seeing today, and how are these issues? How do we elevate these issues and really raise our voices?
Oh, well, thank you, Alejandra. And thank you again for having us here and for the YW for doing this important conversation with the emphasis at this important moment, 3 weeks out from the election, on the election. As Fatima said, this recession, this pandemic has really hit women the hardest. It has exposed, I will say, the struggles that working women know that they have been dealing with for generations. And now all of a sudden the whole country is seeing it. We are seeing the fact that, women are 80% of essential workers. They are our healthcare workers. They are the people who are picking our food. They are the people who are putting the food on the store shelves for us to buy. Everything that the rest of us need to stay safe and healthy during this pandemic are being provided by women workers who are still going to the jobs, whether they've got PPE or not. They are showing up. They are, mass transit workers. They're school teachers now. I mean, all of that has really exposed how essential women are to our workforce, even as they are getting disproportionately impacted by the recession, as Fatima pointed out. So that's number one. Number two, we know that, women's healthcare and pre-existing conditions, is on the line right now, right? We are facing, a week after the election. So get this, 1 week after the election on November 10th, the United States Supreme Court will hear arguments brought by Republican governors and Republican, politicians who have sued to try to completely undo and throw out the entirety of the Affordable Care Act, the entirety of it, right? Which means if they succeed in what looks to be potentially a reconstituted Supreme Court, with a new justice on it, who has already voiced her opposition to the Affordable Care Act, then 20 million people will lose coverage. People with pre-existing conditions will no longer have the protections that were afforded by the Affordable Care Act. Do not be misled. There is no executive order that can trump what the legal law is. There, if you throw out the Affordable Care Act, there are no federal protections for pre-existing conditions. The free contraception that we fought so hard for to make sure that women have access to free contraceptive services, that's under the Affordable Care Act, that goes out. And for those of us who have college age kids or just post-college age kids, those kids who've been able to stay on as they are on their parents' and health insurance till they were age 26, that's gone. That's gone right away. So all of those things will happen in the middle of a pandemic, right? With no replacement solution put forward by this administration or the Republicans in Congress, notwithstanding the fact that they've had 10 years since the Affordable Care Act was enacted to come up with an alternative solution. So that's what we're going to face, in terms of healthcare issues facing women. And then finally, just to come back to where we started on the economic front, we did a survey at times in the summer, on equal pay and what people were seeing in the middle of the pandemic. And one of the most heartbreaking statistics we found in that is that nearly half of women of color, Black and Latinx women, right now don't have $200 in savings in their bank accounts. Right? They cannot afford to make ends meet. It is what you saw in the video of, women who are trying to scrape by on $16 a month or $100 a month, if that's all they have. And again, what this Congress is doing right now is holding these rushed hearings on the Supreme Court instead of passing any kind of recovery bill, any kind of support for these families. The support that was passed in the spring is now run out. The emergency paid sick leave that was passed is running out, and we do not have leadership in Washington that is addressing the needs of working families, which is why, to go back to where we began, what happens in 3 weeks, everything that, we were talking about voting is so critically important. Because it's not very often that when you're mad and you're upset about something, that as the average citizen, you actually get to do something about it immediately. This is that moment. No matter what you're feeling, if you are scared because of the pandemic, if you're mad because of what's going on in Congress, if you are sad because of the loss of people like John Lewis and Elijah Cummings and most recently Ruth Bader Ginsburg, then we can all do something about it right away, and that is we can vote. That is our superpower in these moments, that we can actually, as citizens of this country, take this power which was given to us as the founding of our country and take it in our hands and do something about all of those emotions and frustrations and fears that we have, and do something to actually change things.
I like how you frame that, our superpower. That superpower to go to the voting booth or by mail and to exercise our right to vote. And I want to take a moment of privilege as the moderator to talk about, to remind people that the census has been very challenging, but make sure that people are filling out their census, because that's the other superpower that we have. We have to be seen and counted. The other thing that I'll say is the ticket is up and down, right?
Right.
So we want to make sure that not only are we focusing on who's at the helm of our country, but also the down ticket, because that down ticket is are going to be the individuals who are going to make decisions on the next political maps through our country, as well as decisions that are happening at the local and state level. So we want to make sure that folks are involved and engaged. And I want to bring in back Cecile, because Cecile, there are some really interesting ballot initiatives that are impacting women. Without saying whether we're for or against, it's just highlighting how these ballot initiatives really impact women in the state of Florida.
Absolutely. I was just listening to Tina's comments and they were so on point. Thank you. And a good segue to this issue. I want people to do their research on the different amendments. There's 6 out there, but I think there's 3 in particular that impact women. And the first one is Amendment 2, which is to raise the minimum wage to $15 over 5 years. The people who think they're excited about this is they want to provide a livable wage and to stop the pressure on people having to work 2 and 3 jobs just to put food on the table and keep the roof over their heads. Because this is very difficult on the health and mental well-being of the women in particular and the caregivers. And it makes it very difficult for people to be available for their loved ones and their families and for themselves. The people who are against it are concerned that it will limit jobs, it will impact small businesses, and that it could possibly impact youth getting work, because they're often at the tail end of the employability and they get those lower paying jobs. And there's some concern that if those lower paying jobs aren't available, less youth will be hired and it'll just kind of squeeze the lower end of the spectrum. But keep in mind that this raising of the minimum wage is something that's going to be done essentially over 5-6 years. So in 2026, it'll be $15 an hour. The second issue that is of great importance that will impact women and persons of color is Amendment 3. And that's called Open Primaries and Top 2. And what that means is, let's talk a little bit about what's going on right now in the state of Florida. We have closed primary system. So if you belong to a party, say Republican, then Republicans only can vote on picking the candidate that would go forward in the general election. If you were a Democrat, only Democrats could pick the Democratic candidate that would go forward in a primary contest, and then that person would go head to head with the other candidates in the general election. So that's called a closed primary system. There's been some concern over the years because we have a growing group of people who say we don't want to belong to a party. We just want to vote for the person. We don't want to be controlled. And they're called non-party NPAs, non-party affiliated people. And there's some concern that those people are not involved in the primary system. So that's part of the push with Amendment 3. The people who are NPAs, non-party affiliated, could then participate in determining who goes forward to the very end in the general election. Now, there's some concerns that have been raised with this Amendment 3, because not only is it an open primary, there's another part that people don't always remember, and there's a top two. The top two, what that means is when everybody is competing in the primary, you're not going to have a Democrat and a Republican necessarily. You're just going to have the top two vote getters, regardless of their party. And so there's some concern that this combination of open primary and top two would negatively impact the voting strength of African American voters, because some districts were drawn so that the African American vote would have more power. If you open up a particular geographical area and you allow other persons, Republican or independent, many of whom are not African American, to vote in that same geographical area, well, then the voting strength of the smaller group of people is going to be compressed, because you'll have a larger group of people who will be able to pick. So that is considered one of the things against it. As I stated earlier, one of the things that people are saying they're for it will open the doors to nonpartisan people to be able to participate in the primary. So it is considered right now a very controversial amendment, but it's something that will impact women quite a bit, because a lot of times we are concerned about having our voices heard, and certainly women of color will possibly be impacted by if Amendment 3 were to pass. So the next one is Amendment 4. Yes, go ahead. Go ahead, Alejandra.
No, I just wanted to kind of bring back the focus in terms of all of these different amendments that are critical. And I guess this is really where we need to drive the point that voters need to do their homework. They need to be critical thinkers in this process, because these decisions impact them. And if I may, Cecile, I'm just going to share some breaking news that just came from the Supreme Court, where it is allowing the census to end on October 31st. And it is important for us to understand that. Why is this impactful? Because currently with the pandemic, there is an undercount, and that undercount translates into resources that come to community, into political representation. So, as we host this virtual town hall, it's important to understand that big decisions are happening in our country every single minute. So I want to go back to Tina, if I may. Tina, just to bring you in, because as YWCA, we are one of the largest nonprofit providers of services for survivors of domestic violence. And the issue of gender-based violence, whether it's sexual assault or domestic violence, is still at the core. How are women showing up in these issues of safety, both in the workplace, at home, and I know that you have some important data to share with us.
Yes, and I apologize. My dog has just chosen this moment to bark at whoever is outside of our house. Actually, Alejandra, the breaking news as I'm reading my alert is the Supreme Court is allowing the Trump administration to end the count early like now, before October 31st, not allowing the extension, which was allowed by the district court to accommodate COVID, which is, if I must say, for me, stunning, because the census should be about getting an accurate count, no matter how that falls, an accurate count of our citizens in our country. That was what it was embedded by our founders. And what the manipulation that this administration has undergone in doing this, including playing around with the deadlines, is, you know, such a undermining of really our democratic principles. And so, to your earlier point, if somebody on this call has not filled out their census, like, do it tonight, like, do it like right now while you're listening to us.
Thank you for clarifying.
You've got to get it. You've got to get it in. You can do it online. It literally takes 10 minutes to do online. So, you know, violence against women, you know, is again another key issue that's on the ballot. You know, one of the things that Fatima and I have worked on, and we were so proud of in the Obama administration, was the work that we did on violence against women in multiple areas, including the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act that occurred during our administration, which not only reinstituted all of the protections for domestic violence victims and sexual assault victims in the original Violence Against Women Act, we extended its protections to Native American women, to LGBTQIA, you know, survivors of sexual assault and violence against women. In this administration, the Violence Against Women Act has not been reauthorized, has gone without reauthorization, without the extension of those protections. So that's number one. Number two, another piece of work that I did a lot of work on was the protections we afforded to sexual assault on campus, you know, in reaction to those several students who were in the video earlier. Sexual assault on campus is, you know, rampant. You know, 1 in 4 young women who go to college will sadly experience sexual violence at some point before they graduate from college. We did a lot of work under Title IX in the Obama administration, led by Vice President Biden, to address these issues, you know, actually made it a requirement for schools to address them. This administration, under Secretary Betsy DeVos, has completely unwound all of those protections. And more than unwound those protections, they've actually expanded protections for perpetrators. They've made it more difficult to find and prosecute perpetrators and to protect young people from sexual violence on our campus. That's on the ballot, and we've got to address those and reverse those issues. And finally, this pandemic, to go back to our earlier conversation, we also know that working from home is often not a safe workplace for so many women. And this is something I know the YWCA has done so much work on throughout its history, is to combat the issue of domestic violence. And we all have been working on those issues and needing to actually address, you know, the problems that confront, you know, women trying to work from home, trying to deal with those issues, both whether it's domestic violence among a partner in the home, but the other issue, as an organization that's done a lot of work on sexual harassment for the last 3 years, we are raising the call that sexual harassment doesn't end when people are working remotely from home either. Right? So workplace sexual harassment is not just a physical act that happens in the workplace. It can happen over Zoom. It can happen in harassing somebody on the private chat rooms. We've heard stories from women whose bosses have been texting them at 3 a.m, you know, knowing that they've got kids and family at home, to harass them. And it's harder as a manager, you know, when that happens, actually, to find out that it's happening. So we have to be extra vigilant as employers and as workers to combat that. So these are the kinds of issues that we've got to be addressing right away. I will say one resource that Time's Up has put out for employers, and you can get it by texting us, is we put out a guide to equity and inclusion during crises to try to address anti-racism and equity and inclusion during a pandemic, during a racial justice crisis, during an economic crisis. And people can get those by texting the word guide to 30644, or you can text the word now to 30644 to sort of join Time's Up and get any of the information that we have. And you know, it's all open source. It's something we want all employers to use.
So I just want to, you know, it's incredible how time flies, because I really want to emphasize, look, as 501c3, we're here to talk about the issues that impact women every single day, whether it's the childcare, whether it's their safety, making sure that we are empowered to really raise our voices unfettered, without any challenges before us, but yet we know that there are many impediments to exercising our right to vote. And we want to make sure that, first of all, we work very closely with all of you. And just want to lift up the fact that we are focusing on the issues here, because it is the issues that are going to drive women and communities of color to the voting booth to really select what's in their best interest for themselves, for their families. So I want to thank you all for this incredible opportunity. And I want to show yet another video of voices around South Florida as to why they vote. So thank you.
I vote because.
I vote because.
I vote because.
I vote to protect the rights that we have and to fight for the rights for those who've been denied. I vote because our country, our state, and our community can only get better if we all vote, if we all speak up for justice.
I vote because my ancestors marched and died for me to have the right to do so.
I vote because my family came to the U.S. looking for freedom and opportunity. And my vote is the only way to preserve that for ourselves and the next generation.
I vote for the same reason I complete the census, because I care deeply and passionately about our community. And it matters. So please join me and vote.
Thank you. And Fatima, I want to go to you now and let's talk about how do we motivate young voters. You know, our Florida poll really emphasized that there's a generational enthusiasm gap, that the older women are much more eager to get to the vote, and yet it's hard to mobilize and activate Gen Zs and millennials to go to the vote. What are you seeing?
I think the way to activate younger voters is to talk about the issues that they're passionate about. And so that's what we're doing. I know that that is what you're doing. So if they're saying in your poll that the thing that they're passionate about is addressing racism in this country, addressing police violence, well, talking to them about those issues and the many, many ways that voting makes a difference. And it's, you know, one of the things I wanted to return to that you mentioned earlier is that it's up and down the ballot, right? So it is not just the big races for president. It is who are the state prosecutors, who is on the school board, who is the mayor. They're making determinations that are affecting lives. One of the things that we're hearing a lot at the National Women's Law Center, however, is that with the Supreme Court confirmation hearing coming this week and this rush to fill RBG's seat, younger people know who RBG is. She was an icon for so many people, for so many reasons, and watching this unfold this week, day after day, the idea that her seat could be filled by someone who had such an anti-feminist record that could set us back generations, people are paying attention to that. And I'll go back to the last point that I know we've talked about a lot, is this care challenge. Many younger women are doing what, frankly, I am also doing. I'm not so young, but I'm also caring and working and homeschooling and all of those things at the same time. And let me tell you, when that is the case, you wake up every single day thinking about that and actually thinking about the many, many leadership failures that we have had that put us in this situation to begin with.
I want to now open it up because I know we have a lot of folks who are just eager to ask some questions. So I'm going to ask my colleague, Catherine Bean, to help me out a bit, just to bring some of the real questions from our audience.
Absolutely. And actually, our very first question is a video question that was submitted in advance from a woman who is in South Florida. We're really excited to hear from Lori Marie Huertas. And while she asks her question, I really want to encourage anyone who is online with us to type any kind of questions you might have into the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen or into the chat, because we're ready to take your questions. We have about 10 minutes for questions. All right, Matt, let's play it.
Hi, my name is Lori Huertas. I am an Army mom and recently became an abuela, working on my doctorate degree at Barry University. And my question is for Licenciada Alejandra Castillo. How can we empower partnerships with higher education institutions to empower women during these challenging times? Thank you.
That was a great video. And she just said, you know, she said she became an abuela, which means a grandmother. So she speaks from that intergenerational. Partnership is the secret sauce. Partnership is really how we mobilize, and this evening is a testament to that. How we partner with Tchen and her organization, and Fatima and Cecile, League of Women Voters, and National League of National Women's Law Center, and Time's Up. The secret sauce is partnership. With regards to higher education, right now, as our white paper, which we just released today, we are focusing on the future of work. And higher education really has a very important role to play, as well as the private sector. How are we going to help women really become that engine, that economic engine, to get us out of this she-cession? And that hinges on childcare, and it also hinges on the future of work. How do we prepare our workforce for the changes in the economy, whether it's the automation that's happening, COVID-19, how do we get more e-commerce in our women-owned businesses? So there's a lot, and I will always say partnership is truly the secret sauce to moving our country forward. So thank you for that question.
Yep, sure. Our next question is from Irene Sakata in the question and answer pod, and she asks, and I actually am going to help give an answer and then turn it over to the panel. What is polling as the most important issue to young voters under 27? Here in Miami, I think it's COVID. And what we found in the survey that we had, the online poll that we had out from September 25th to October 11th, so literally hot off the presses, is that Florida Gen Z women they shared a number of really important economic priorities, ensuring workplaces that are free from sexual harassment, sexual violence, and discrimination, prohibiting evictions for as long as the coronavirus pandemic lasts. That came in at 66% of Gen Z women, and I meant to say the fair, safe workplaces at 70%, and making healthcare coverage affordable at 65%. So Alejandra, Fatima, and then Tina and Cecile, I don't know if there are additional comments you might have on that data or in response to that question.
Well, let me jump in on the first point about sexual harassment, since that's something obviously that we're focused on at Time's Up. You know, I think it's actually striking, if you think about it, how high that polls during a pandemic, right? So we're talking about a moment where, as the number 2 issue, people are worried about getting evicted, or people are worried about their student loans. You heard the economic issues that people are confronting, and yet it remains so critical that we have safe workplaces. That tells you how much, how many women are experiencing sexual harassment in the workplace when they have to go to work. And we have been worried about this because during a moment where people are struggling to keep their jobs, they are actually potentially much more vulnerable to being, confronted with sexual harassment because they can't leave, right? They can't actually go back out into the job market. They can't make the reporting, on a manager, without fear for getting retaliated against. And that's why, the work we're doing at Time's Up is so critical. I will say, and Fatima can chime in, if anybody needs help, that's what the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund that Fatima Goss Graves at National Women's Law Center houses, for us at Time's Up it's there for. So you can go to the National Women's Law Center's website, nwlc.org, to get help, right? If you do not hold back from reaching out for help, because help is there for you. That's what we are there for. And so I hope that people will do that. But that also just tells me we've got to keep battling on the policy issues and the structural solutions to make work safe and fair and dignified for everyone.
Thanks, Tina. And I'm going to jump in here with the second question, and then Fatima and Cecile can add in. In response to either, again, from Irene Sakata, in many elected bodies, we have no female representation. So if anyone wants to maybe respond on that front, that would be fair game as well. And if anybody else has questions, please let us know. Type into the Q&A or the chat pod.
Well, I just wanted to add really quick to Tina's point. When we have recently pulled this issue, you know, COVID is the top response, but it represents so many things. It represents access to healthcare and fears of not having healthcare. It represents both job loss, or the fact that people are working unsafely and have worries about their financial futures. And so it was hard to unpack the many COVID worries. It represents the care crisis. So I know that's front of mind. I just want to say a thing about when Times launched and what we saw happened in the aftermath. What we saw after the launch of Time's Up is, and coming from the Women's March and Time's Up and Me Too, was a different level of energy that led to a historic number of women running for office at all levels. So this time in 2020 on the ballot, we have more women running at the federal, state, and local levels than we ever have had in history. We have more Black and Latina women running than ever in history. So what I would say is, it is my deep hope that we will no longer continue to see bodies in major areas that are all male. And I think the energy that is coming from women-led activism is guiding us there.
That's great. And I have a new question, and it's perfect for Cecile. Jennifer Valdez asks, there's so much information out there. Where is the best place to find factual information about local candidates so we can do the homework and suggest or share with others so they're informed? And after you answer, it's going to be time to wrap up and get to our candidate forum. So Cecile, I'll turn it over to you. You have your microphone on for us? Yeah. There you go.
I'm going to go back to the site that I recommended before, vote411.org. It not only helps with registration and checking your ballot and your vote by mail, it also has links to local candidates and information, local candidates that's nonpartisan. And so you can kind of, get information about them. And of course, you can always link over to the different websites and see what the individual candidates are saying. But there are sources like that people can go to. So I recommend, and I'm gonna throw a little 2 cents in with regards to the women's issues that have been mentioned. In my day job, I am a civil rights attorney, and I have had many race and sexual harassment cases. And they're all terrifying, and your heart breaks for people, because you're actually at work more than you are at home in terms of your waking hours. And when your workplace is threatening to you, threatening your self-esteem, your physical integrity, your relationships, that shuts you down in such a way that it actually impacts the family and impacts other ways. So good for you guys doing that work. It is much needed. And maybe one of the outcomes has been more people running. I think it's generational. I know, if you're of a certain age, we didn't see a lot of women mayors or women doing things. I think our children are having different attitudes, and hopefully they'll jump in there. And since we have candidates in their late 70s running for a high office, that tells all of us, even if we have a few gray hairs, it's not too late for us. So I just think women have so much knowledge. We have so much experience, regardless of our educational levels, and we can bring that to bear, and that voice and that experience is much needed to solve the many problems that we have in our society, and to make the things that are better even better.
That's great. If Cecile, if you could please type into the chat box, someone has requested that you type in the web address that you just mentioned so that we can share it with everyone. That would be great. And no one should leave at all. Please don't leave. I'm going to turn it back over to Alejandra for a couple of last word minutes on this segment of our program, and then I'll take over with introducing the next segment. So Alejandra?
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Catherine. I want to send out my tremendous gratitude, because I know how busy we all are, and especially these panel of participants, because the demand on your time is really growing on so many levels because of the great work that you do. So I want to thank Fatima, who I adore. You as a sister, Tchen, who I've always been an admirer on so many levels, and Cecile, thank you for putting perspective. All I can say is 21 days for us to ensure that our voices are heard at the highest levels of government. And remember, it's the entire ticket. This was an incredible panel conversation. Thank you for supporting YWCA, and thank you for entrusting us with your time, because we all have great responsibilities. But I want to send you, on behalf of YWCA USA, our greatest love and
Great. Thank you so much, Alejandra. At this point in time, as I mentioned, this segment of our program is closing. And now we are going to turn to our nonpartisan presidential candidate forum. And to help us with our transition, Matt, I think we have a short video queued up, and then I can go over kind of the rules of the road for this section of our program. Are we ready? Thank you, Tina. Thank you, Fatima.
Yo voto para ver los cambios en nuestro país y nuestros sistemas de gobierno que crean libertad, justicia y equidad para todos.
Thanks so much, Matt. And hello to everyone again. As I mentioned, we have transitioned now to the second segment of our program, a candidate forum where we are going to be hearing from representatives of both the Republican and Democratic presidential campaigns. Each is being provided equal time, up to 10 minutes, to address the issues that were raised during today's program, and to speak on behalf of their candidates about those topics. I'd like to remind everyone again that YWCA is a nonpartisan 501c3 organization and does not support or endorse any candidate for public office. We are creating an equal forum for both the President Trump and Vice President Biden's campaigns. All partner organizations have also agreed to participate in this way, and we will not be providing an opportunity for question and answer during this session. We have enough time for each of our guest speakers to address the audience for, again, up to 10 minutes. At the 10-minute mark, if either of our speakers has not finished speaking, I will insert myself and say thank you, and then we will move on so that we can maintain our 501c3 responsibilities. So I thank you both. At this point in time, it's my pleasure to introduce, is it Mary Lee? Help me with your name. Mary Lee Castillo?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Who is an advisory board member with Latinos for Trump. And your 10 minutes begins now. Welcome, Mary Lee.
Thank you so much, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be with all of you this evening. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background. I was a trustee at Miami-Dade College for 7 years. From 2011 to 2018, I was one of the first mentors in the Single Stop USA program at Miami-Dade College. And one of my proudest moments was when my mentee, who came from a very poor family from Honduras, not only graduated from Miami-Dade College, but went to graduate from college, get married, and she lives now in the west coast of Florida, and keeping touch with her. It's something that I find very empowering. So I support President Trump, but how did I get here? I grew up in Brazil. I didn't speak English when I arrived here when I was 17 years old. My parents are from Cuba, but I spoke Spanish at home, Portuguese in Brazil. But I experienced what a lot of immigrants experience, getting here, not speaking the language. I became a teenage bride. I had 2 kids by the time I was 24, had no college education. I was in a really bad marriage, like a lot of women experience. And through education, I was able to get out of a bad cycle. I was able to put myself through school and then law school in Philadelphia, all through student loans. And one of my proudest moments was paying off those student loans. So when I hear women that are going through issues of having to deal with student loans and repayments, I can completely feel for you. So fast forward 23 years after graduating from law school, I first worked for big law firms. I experienced a lot of the same things that women in this chat have experienced, whether discrimination or harassment. But I never saw myself as a victim, and I really was very strong. I mean, every time that I got hit with something, I just found a different way. About 9 years ago, I started my own business. So I'm speaking to you as a Trump supporter and as a business owner, someone that now writes the paychecks, one that pays the taxes. So when I started 9 years ago, I started by myself. I rented a little tiny office in Brickell Avenue, paying $750 a month, really not knowing how I was going to pay my bills. But I sort of had a plan that I had one client, that maybe with that one client I could get more. After the first year in business with one client, when I started, I ended up with 82, and the second year, 250 clients. So I believed in myself, and what I find very important is that there's so many things out there to help you. School for me was salvation, and I think for women, education is the key to success and to freedom, economic freedom. And so supporting President Trump, it's because I believe in that freedom of paying less taxes, of being free to pay whatever I want for my employee, all my employees are women. They all make over $15 an hour, a lot more than that. So after my first year, I hired my first employee, then my second, then my third, then my fourth. And I'm the first one there and the last one there, but I find time to advocate for other women and for political campaigns. I agree with all of you that our vote is our voice, and we need to go out and vote. I've run for office twice. I hope that more other women run for office. I think, yes, women can make a huge difference. We make things better. Companies that have more women and minorities are more profitable. Simple as that. The diversity, it's very enriching to all the businesses. And again, we are 21 days away from a very important election, but I'm supporting a president that it's not very popular by the way that he talks or by some of the things that he says, but his actions really matter to me. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, for example, doubled the child tax credit to $2,000. During his administration, women experienced the lowest unemployment rate ever. Every year, the Trump administration puts $200 million for technology, just for women. For childcare, for example, he went from 3.9 billion in funding to $5.8 billion in funding during the Trump administration. So the administration is working very hard to lift everybody together, a big wave to lift everybody out of poverty. I truly believe that my business went through very scary times through COVID, when all of a sudden we all had to close our doors. How was I going to pay my employees? There were scary times, but I believe this administration acted quickly, not only when they closed the travel to China, when he was called xenophobic, but he took the right steps. PPP was a great program, the Paycheck Protection Program, that helped a lot of businesses, including mine. So I support this administration for what it has achieved. Even though it's not popular, not many people hear about it, I believe that what they have done for my business and other women's business is shown in the numbers, and you can't say anything about it. Lowest unemployment for women, period. Now, for the women that are concerned about COVID and jobs, forget what President Trump says about it. Listen to the scientists. One, there is going to be a vaccine either by the end of the year. I heard an expert on NBC News today that by April or May of next year, we should have the vaccine readily available for everybody. And I experienced COVID. My pregnant daughter had COVID. My grandbaby, 18 months old, had COVID. We were all quarantining for 3 months. And then all of a sudden we had one family dinner where someone, a nephew, a teenager came, infected one cousin, and I ended up getting it from my son. And my grandbaby also got it. So thank God we're all okay and we did fine. But yes, I understand these are scary times, but I think we have to be optimistic. We're resilient and we're gonna succeed. Have faith. And my recommendation to all of you, if you don't know about your career, if you have any doubts, call Miami-Dade College. They'll help you out. They have great programs. And again, fill out the census, vote, be part of this community. And please talk to other people that may disagree with you, because I listened and I learned from everybody all the time. And we may not agree like in what candidate we're gonna vote or maybe in certain political issues, but at the end of the day, we're women, we're mothers, grandmothers, and what we want is for families to be safe and secure and succeed. And so I have my choice with President Trump. You're free to have your choice for whoever your candidate is, but I believe that above politics, we need to maintain civility and maintain channels of communications open among us. So thank you for your time and listening to me. It has been a pleasure to be with you this evening. Tonight is my husband's birthday. I was just waiting to finish this so that I can go enjoy dinner with my family tonight. But again, whoever is the winner on November 3rd or the day after, I'm a proud American above all, and I'm going to support whoever the winner is. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Mary Lee. Now we will turn to the representative for the Joe Biden campaign. Ashley Tchen, if you wouldn't mind, please turning on your microphone and your camera. There we are. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ashley, as I said, is the senior advisor for a senior advisor rather for the Joe Biden for President campaign, and I will turn things over right now for your 10 minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to start by saying I love the YWCA and want to congratulate you guys on all the work you're doing to empower women and families. I've always admired it, I should say. So listen, we have 20 some odd days into the election. There's no question that women will make the difference in this election, especially in Florida. Let's be completely clear, the president has failed women. He's failed our families, our communities, our sisters, not just during this pandemic, but throughout his presidency. Let's consider some of the issues that are most important to women here in Florida, healthcare, for example. Donald Trump is fighting to undermine the ACA in the courts. Joe Biden, who was instrumental in passing the ACA, which, as we all know, unlocked affordable health care for millions and millions of Americans, will rebuild the ACA to make it more accessible and affordable for more individuals. Climate change, for example, while our communities continue to be hit hard by increasing intensified hurricanes and rising sea levels, Donald Trump calls it a hoax. But VP Biden will build back our economy in a green, resilient way. Gun violence and gun safety. This state, like many others, knows the sting of gun violence, and Donald Trump refuses to act. VP Biden has been a steadfast advocate for gun reform, and you'll see a great change in a Biden-Harris administration. Regarding the economy and COVID, Donald Trump didn't take this pandemic seriously from the start. We all know that. We heard the tapes where he misled, where he intentionally said he lied to the American public, which led to over 250,000 people losing their lives. That's mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers. That's more people than all of the wars we've ever fought as a nation combined. 30 million people are now unemployed because of his failure, because he refused to take it seriously and to lead with science. And our kids Mine, especially, I'm a single mom, this matters a lot to a lot of women all over the country, are not in school every day. And we're having to juggle not only parenting, but homeschooling while actually working. We deserve better than that, and it can be better. It really comes down to this. Joe Biden has a plan, and Donald Trump does not. He has no plan to get us out of this mess that he's gotten us in. He has no plan to get people back to work, and no plan to bring this country together and to heal us as one nation. Joe Biden has spent his career fighting for women, fighting for our health care, leading the passage of VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, and is a steadfast proponent for equal pay for equal work. He hears us and he sees us. With Senator Harris by his side, the daughter of immigrants with Caribbean roots that so many here in Florida share, we have a ticket that's energizing women from Duval to Miami, which is incredibly exciting. This election comes down to who you can trust. Who do we trust with our lives? Who do we trust with our kids' future? Who do we trust to put the interests of the American people first? Make no mistake about it, as I mentioned earlier, Donald Trump purposefully downplayed the deadliness of this virus, and regrettably too many people, like our guest who just spoke right before me, have contracted this disease, and thank God everybody's, her family is safe and healthy. But he knew and willingly lied to the American people about the threat that it posed to the country. And he did that for months. And his response has been, it is what it is. It is what it is, in the face of the deadliest pandemic the world has ever faced, and the deadliest and most critical crises facing our country right now. And while the virus has ripped through our nation, he has failed to do his job and on purpose, failed to have a plan. And now more than 15,000 Floridians have died. 725 of them have contracted and been infected with the COVID-19 virus. His failure to act not only cost lives, but it sent our economy into a tailspin that has cost millions more Americans their livelihood. Real leadership means a plan. Real leadership leads with science. Real leadership develops a 50-stage strategy to tackle the virus. Real leadership provides resources to our schools so that they can open safely and effectively. Real leadership does not turn its back on the states. Real leadership does not respond in the face of a crisis with, it is what it is. Women are suffering the brunt of Trump's failed leadership. Our small businesses are closing at an alarming rate. The pandemic has exacerbated existing inequalities. Families are facing food insecurities, and unemployment is going up with no end in sight. The truth is, even before COVID, women had never really had a full seat at the table. And especially when it comes to minority women. And millions were already locked out of the economy that rewards wealth over work and helps too few to make ends meet. Trump has no solutions for these challenges. Instead, he denigrates women, the senator included. And again, in the face of our suffering, he dismisses it, laughs at it, makes a joke of it. Well, that's not good enough for me. And it's not good enough for the women of this country. It's not good enough for my daughter, and it's not good enough for future generations. We as a nation and as women deserve better. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. So Biden and Harris is offering a new direction for America to build our economy back better in a more equitable way. He will create millions of good paying jobs and ensure that women get what they deserve and what we have earned. He will unify and unite this country, bring us together, because he understands that what affects one of us ultimately affects all of us. He will save the soul of America and take our country back. To be a little more specific about a couple of issues that I know are important, especially to women like me, childcare. No low to middle income families will spend more than 70% of their income on childcare for children under the age of 5. Thank God my little baby is 5 years old. Saving families thousands of dollars a year. Older Americans, my dad happens to live with me. Joe will expand options for community and home-based care. He will create millions of home care jobs, nursing care care jobs, early childhood education jobs to drive our economy to recovery. He will elevate the pay and the dignity of important workers who haven't gotten the respect and the fair shake in our economy. Again, everything we believe in is on the ballot in this election. What we're seeing in the SCOTUS hearings that are happening just now or today makes clear what's hanging in the balance. Choice, clean air and water, equal pay, DACA, VRA, our health, the future of the ACA. Florida has the most ACA enrollees of any state. Nearly 8 million residents have pre-existing conditions. All of this is being threatened by the president's actions. Joe Biden believes that everyone should have access to health care and be able to exercise their constitutional rights, regardless of their income and zip code. As president, Joe Biden will send a bill to Congress to codify Roe, restore federal funding for Planned Parenthood, which provides essential reproductive and other health care needs for people all over, from rural America to urban centers. And will protect and build on Obamacare so that women have access to reproductive care. To close, Joe Biden believes that we have—
Thank you, Ashley. We're at the 10-minute mark. It's all good. Thank you very much for joining us here today. I very much appreciate your participation and the campaign's participation, just as I appreciate the Trump campaign's participation in this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. And that concludes our candidate forum, but hold on. I want to transition now to the CEO of YWCA South Florida, Carrie Ann Royce. And Matt, if you could cue up a very special 30-second spot to introduce Carrie Ann, I'd appreciate it.
I vote because I'm an immigrant. I came to this country at the age of 13. I had to be naturalized, and I passed the test to earn my citizenship and to earn the right to cast a vote and to have a voice. I have first-generation American citizens in this country who are my children. So I take the right of those who shed blood and tears and gave their lives to earn this voice very, very seriously.
Thanks so much, Matt. And thank you, Carrie Ann. It's been a pleasure to partner with you and your tremendous staff on this event. And I'll turn things over to you to do a wrap up for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And thank you so much to Alejandra and to our wonderful panelists and to our representatives that came and shared their perspectives with us. It's been quite an enlightening discussion, and I feel even more prepared now to take action. And I hope that you do too. I hope you know that whether you are Republican or Democrat or independent, we as women are bound together by economics and COVID and worrying about our kids and harassment in the workplace or not in the workplace, our jobs, our security and safety, and our access to healthcare. Our issues are collective. The diversity of women and the diversity of perspectives is necessary for our democracy, and we celebrate all women. Almost 100 of you joined us here, and many, many more on our Facebook Live nationally and around South Florida. We have given you lots of resources and information to support your own decision. And I look forward to building our South Florida future with you. To our leader sponsors, again, Uber, Apollo Bank, and AARP, our supporter sponsors, RBB Communications, and League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade. We greatly appreciate your assistance in making this happen. Thank you again for our amazing host committee, Karen Gilmore, Ann Machado, and Sarah Harold. Our community appreciates you. And to keep up with everything that's going on at your YWCA South Florida and all the efforts that we're making, follow us on all social media platforms at YWCA South FL for a look into how we're elevating women, girls, and communities of color. We also invite you to join our YWCA Justice Movement. Become a justice mover. Visit our website at ywcasouthflorida.org to learn more about what you can do to continue the crucial conversations like tonight and to get involved with action. Until justice just is, we will continue to work to inform the voting experience and to move South Florida forward. I want to remind you that on October 24th is National Voter Day. And we are doing everything with our partners here on the ground with Vote the Future to remove your barriers, to walk your votes in on the 24th. We want to make sure that every single ballot gets counted. If you need transportation, there is transportation. We have partnerships that will get buses to take you from where you are to where you need to be at the polls. And Uber has given us codes to help you get there too. And remember that November 19th is Give Miami Day. Don't forget to mark your calendars to support your YWCA South Florida and other nonprofits that are doing the work every day. We're excited to see you all at the polls. Don't forget that early voting begins on October 19th at any location, and voting on election day is offered in your local precinct. Enjoy your evening, everyone. I want to leave you with a quote that our former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the US and a fighter for equity, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, said, "Women belong in all places where decisions are made. We belong at the polls. Our voices count and our votes really count." Have a fantastic night.